Like, share, and subscribe. Welcome to Voice of the Fat Mantis. You're watching my review of American Horror Stories, Season 1. Yes, I emphasized the S. We don't want to get it confused with its mothership television series of epic proportions. This is a single episode anthology series, changing stories every 1 or 2 episodes. And it allows you to tell stories that American Horror Story just can't fit into their normal storytelling things because they're too crammed down with plot. Is it any good? I've seen it, and we're going to get into it each crazy episode. We're going to start with episode 1 and 2, a two-parter entitled The Rubber Woman. It starts off with the story of Scarlett, a strange young teenage girl who her and her gay fathers are on a road trip to their new home out in LA. And of course, it is an all too familiar house. That's right, it is the epic murder house. And they buy it and they go through similar storylines and story beats as the Langdon story found in American Horror Story Murder House Season 1. The question is it copying when you copy off yourself? Because there's absolutely nothing original going on in this story. And not only that, I blame it on the lack of time, that they didn't have enough time to really develop Scarlett's character. 1 minute she's totally a normal adjusted teenager, or should I say one that's bullied but seems totally able to function with day-to-day life, and then just randomly murders people as if it's nothing. There's no character depth that explores why she's messed up or if she's even messed up at all, because quite frankly, her bad acting ultimately makes it seem like it's fake. I have to say that the horror in this fails on every level, and there's nothing creepy, there's nothing particularly scary, and ultimately even the level of gore is not nonsense. They murder characters for literally no reason, not to assist the story, but just to have them. In the second episode, they decided to give her a character named Ruby, who becomes her lesbian lover. It's supposed to mirror the Tate and Violet storyline, as it's star-crossed lovers who can't be together. However, one major problem is that Ruby is played by Kaya Gerber, none other than Cindy Crawford's daughter. And I say this with a heavy heart. She's one of the worst actors I have ever seen in my life. I don't say that easy. It is so hard to do and so easy to criticize, which is why I really like to refrain from having extremities about putting pieces of art down. However, Kaya Gerber is just a non-believable actress whose flat and every line is uttered the exact same. Completely ruined the romance aspect of it and made these 2 episodes almost unwatchable. It's such a shame because Return to Murder House, found in American Horror Story Apocalypse, was such a wonderful way to both return and finish the story of Murder House. I give those first 2 episodes a big fat F. Get out my face. Moving on, we're going to move on to At the DriveIn, episode 3. The story is simple. Young Chad is focused on one thing, and it's getting laid. He wants to get his girlfriend to put out, but she's not ready to do it. She's just emotionally not there yet. Where are the ways that we can make this happen? He's formulating with his friends, and he realizes there's a drive-in returning to the local area, and that's the perfect way to seduce your girlfriend. He decides to take her to a horror movie night where they're going to play the infamous movie Rabbit, a movie that has only aired once ever before, because the only last time it was one and only time it was ever played was the entire audience went nuts and started killing each other. It then was put in a vault until that day. No one has seen it since, and they decided to play it that night. I'm not going to spoil what happens, but there are a few twists and turns, particularly in the final scene of the episode. I thought this was a delight. I really liked where it goes. Particularly, there's a point where they end up confronting the director, and I really liked where they went with that whole storyline. It was fun. It was a little campy, but it was the right amount of camp. To be honest, I'm going to give this episode an A-. It's not horror genius, but for an anthology series where you only have about 40 minutes to tell a story, they did a good one. Moving on to episode 4, Naughty List. Now this is about a group of characters, 4 guys who live in the Bro House. What is the Bro House? The Bro House is a satirical analogy for every social media and YouTuber that ever existed. Influencers beware, you will be offended when you watch this. They take elements from Logan Paul and his crew, and well, Logan Paul, but aren't all YouTubers like Logan Paul? Moving on. The point is that it does comedy and satire so well. The intro to their YouTube videos is classic. You know these types of guys. You've seen them before. They're not just frat boys, but they're excessive, well, psychos, making psychopathy seem like it's a good old fun and games. They take their pranks too far, and they go incredibly too far when they piss off a mall Santa. Mall Santa turns out to be secretly a serial killer, and he's gonna have his revenge. Now, the episode focuses strongly, is entirely comedy. It takes forever for them to get to the inciting incident, pissing off Santa. Then they don't really explain Santa, whether he's supernatural or not, and he ends up killing the entire cast within 5 minutes. When they should have been taking that entire murder sequence and going after them, they could have stretched that for like 30 minutes. Instead, we have a lot of gay jokes, surprisingly coming out of Ryan Murphy's camp, and a lot of other shenanigans, which would work good in a show like Glee. However, it lost its entire horror appeal. I'm unfortunately going to have to give the naughty list a big fat D. Next, episode number 5, Ball. It stars Billie Lourd as Liv Whitley, a woman who's swimming and drowning in money and white privilege. The only thing that will really make her happy is having a baby. She's dying to get pregnant. She married a loser husband who's attempting to be an actor, but he doesn't seem to be any good at his field. She comes from a wealthy family, but they don't have really means or income. The only thing she wants is this child, but doesn't seem to be coming. When a friendly receptionist gives her a statue, a small figurine of the Canaanite god of fertility and storms named Baal. Now, if you know anything about demonology, Canaanite deity Baal ends up becoming Beelzebub after he was cast into hell, and he is the lord of flies, storms, and evil type fertility. He is a no-goodnik, and of course that baby is cursed. What precedes is a very standard, plays by all the rules horror story. They don't do any strange surprises. I love Billie Lourd, love seeing her on camera. Everything she does is magic. Lovely woman. I will say that she did keep this episode going. It's not bad in any way. You've just felt like you've seen it on other shows before. That's all. That's its thing. It's not super sophisticated. I will say it has a twist ending at the end that felt like it was straight out of Tales from the Crypt. It was comedic and cheesy and campy. I kind of loved it. I'm going to have to give that episode a B+. Moving on to episode 6, Farrel. Farrel is an interesting take when a family goes camping in 2011. It's a man, a wife, and his young son, only to discover that his young son vanishes after strange happenings around their campsite. They cannot find their child, and we jump to 10 years later as they were accused of murdering their child. No, not enough evidence to hold them. Their marriage is dissolved, and they never get their son back. Living in a piss-poor motel and split up and just down on his luck, the father still clings on to hope that his son is alive. When he hears a knock on his door, it's a hunter from the part of the camps and the woods where he was before, and he says that he has spotted his son. They then get the wife, or the ex-wife, and they go on a journey to retrieve the child. Now, I rather like this episode, particularly when we finally meet up with a park ranger, Stan. And Stan is none other than played by Cody Fern. That's right, a AHS alumni and Antichrist. We love him so much, and he allows himself to use his just normal Australian accent, which was a joy to have. He offers something new to the story, and I love conspiracy theories, and it felt very creepypasta-esque. But he explains that the actual national park system is not there to preserve nature or give city folk or regular folk an organized way to maintain and live out in the woods just for short periods of time. It's actually there to contain a feral race of humanoid cannibals that seem to be the source of things such as Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Yeti, the Yow Yow, and all sorts of other big furry creatures. And that's really what it is, and they maintain and kill these things while maintaining the parks department. It was a fun, interesting take on it, and the episode also has a great twist ending, which I just thought was American Horror Story classic. I'm going to give this one an A-. And finally, we get to episode 7, Game Over. Game over. Is it confused, unfocused rambling that is the equivalent of a drunk baby trying to write a PhD dissertation? It returns to Murder House yet again. Yeah, I said that. You actually heard that. It doesn't focus on any one particular character as the main character, and what's important in the story constantly fluctuates. For some reason, a story about Murder House ends up being the story of a video game design and the hectic crunch that goes along with it. How that happened, I have no idea. Not very compatible ideas, if you ask me. And by the end of the episode, you're not even sure if what has happened is canon. I will say I do like that at the end, because you're not sure what's a video game and what isn't. It is very possible that Scarlet and Ruby aren't even real. They're characters in a video game. I really hope that that's the verdict. It does something in canon that really has pissed off a lot of people. Now, although it was great to see Ben Harmon return, it was my profound dissatisfaction to see Scarlet and Ruby, played by Kaya Gerber, return to continue their unconvincing love story. Really didn't care for them the first time around. It got even sillier that later on, what does the rubber woman do? She states in a very matter-of-fact tone that she has put her skills to good use and become a paid assassin. It's totally ridiculous. It belongs to Scream Queens and not American Horror Story. And I have to say, I'm going to give this episode a F. Sorry, not sorry, ultimately. So my final verdict on this thing is they might have a few good episodes. None of them are ultimately so great that you'd have to watch this series. To be honest, you're going to get a better experience in American Horror Story Classic, or, well, pretty much any other horror anthology. It's sad that I watched this, produced by Ryan Murphy, and yet somehow I would rather be watching Monsterland. And if you haven't seen my review, I'll put a link to that video at the end of this. So there you have it. There is my review of American Horror Stories Season 1. What did you guys think of it? Am I off base on some of these things? What was your favorite episode? What was your least favorite? And are you excited for American Horror Story Double Feature? The real thing's coming this Wednesday, and I'm going to keep reporting on it. Every Thursday, you're going to get my reviews on it, guys. So please let me know down in the comments all your thoughts. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Remember to keep tuning in to Voice Fat Mantis for more reviews, American Horror Story analysis, and basically stalking of Ryan Murphy. Until next time, ciao for now.